Scouts from Man City believe he is the best 14-year-old in the world, and they aren't exaggerating. Then, 2 days later, a tweet from famous transfer reporter Fabrizio Romano. Manchester City are closing in on deal to sign American Wonderkid Kevin Sullivan. Deal agreed. 2009-born talent set to join MCFC in the next years from Philadelphia Union, despite interest from Real, Borussia Dortmund, and Bayern. Fabrizio would go on to tweet about Kevin Sullivan 5 more times. The Athletic wrote an expose into the rise of Kevin Sullivan, and major Spanish news outlet Marca, they wrote an entire piece about the pursuit for Kevin Sullivan's signature. In just a few months, Kevin Sullivan went from an unknown 14-year-old kid to one of football's next big things. To figure out how and why this happened so fast, I got in touch with the Fabrizio Romano of the United States, MLS insider Tom Bogert. He literally authored that Athletic article that I just mentioned.
The first time I heard about him was when he was about 12, and I have a personal policy where I try very hard not to pay attention to, first of all, preteen talents in the world of soccer, but for the most part, until they're like 16, or exceptions for kids who are about to sign professional contracts. His older brother, Quinn Sullivan, who plays for the first team for the Philadelphia Union, he's a U.S. youth national team, big talent. He put up a highlight reel of his then 12-year-old brother, Kevin, and was like, hey guys, check out my brother's highlight reel. It was like the most adorable and most like innocent like tweet ever. Like made me happy. And when I saw it and I saw it going viral, I made the decision not to watch it. I was like, personal policy, not gonna do it. And then when like the 5th person sent it to me of like, dude, you gotta watch it. It's like, all right, fine, I'll check it out. And I was like, holy this kid is good. A year later, when he was 13, he was playing with the Philadelphia Union U15 to the GA Cup. The GA Cup is the premier youth soccer tournament in the United States. All 29 MLS academies go, plus select international invites. And that year, Arsenal, Real Madrid, Manchester United, River Plate, Flamingo were among those. And the first day I was there, I knew that outside of Cabin, there were a few really good kids on the Philly U15s. And I was looking forward to watching them. But I was watching a bunch of other games. It's a classic youth soccer tournament. So I was going field to field, talking to people walking around. I go up to the Philadelphia Union Arsenal U15 game, and I'm getting there right at kickoff. I haven't seen any rosters yet, nothing. And I kind of slipped my mind about which players I was looking out for with Cabin and whatever. I get in the stands, off the kickoff, Philadelphia Union win the ball off of Arsenal, score around the keeper. Kevin Sullivan ends up with a tap-in. It wasn't a special goal. It was just, again, a tap-in. Nothing that would say that he was incredible. And I didn't know who it was. The way he celebrates, he sprints to the corner flag, does a knee slide, kicks the advertising board, and then does the teacup celebration. And I immediately text one of my closest Philadelphia Union sources and go, dude, I don't know who this number 10 is on your 15s, but let me tell you, just based on his celebration, I can guarantee you that he's going to make it as a pro. And he texts me back and goes, dude, that's Kevin. And I was like, I'm the best scout out there.
But it wasn't just Kevin's attitude and flashy highlights that were moving the needle. He also had something else very rarely seen at youth tournaments like this.
Dude, he ran circles around that team, man. He was just on another level. Obviously his technique, his vision, all this stuff. But like, what really gets me is like, at that level, at that age, if he wanted to just dribble sideways, just beat players again and again and again, he could. But like, he was already like a professional brain in that like everything he did had a purpose. If he did a skill move, it wasn't because it looked cool. It's because it got him closer to the goal. He was much more direct than I thought he was going to be, just based on, again, a 13-year-old child with that kind of technique and flair and being so much better than everybody around him. I figured they were going to need to coach him into, no, you beat the player, then you go forward, or you beat the player, then you make a pass. You don't take extra touches. But what really impressed me was like, wow, like this kid's mentality is already so sharp. His intelligence is already so sharp to go along with his incredible technical ability.
That GA Cup was the first step into the limelight for Kevin Sullivan, in part because the head coach of the Philadelphia Union senior team was actually asked about Kevin Sullivan's performances at the GA Cup after it had concluded. He had played that well.
Philadelphia Union head coach Jim Curtin got asked about it in his next press conference, talking about Kevin Sullivan, and he couldn't help himself to say like, yeah, look, like this kid, we're probably not going to have him for very long, right? Like he's one of the best in the world. And just speaking glowingly about Kevin Sullivan. And then it was around that time I was like, all right, like I got to start talking to sources in his camp. At the Union. All right, are you guys going to do talking about a first professional deal? It's called a homegrown deal in MLS parlance. And just wasn't getting anything back concrete. And it's like, yeah, like he trained with Dortmund because he has a German passport through his family lineage. He, Madrid, Bayern, name any big team, and like he's definitely on their radar, right? Like, so it was always going to be an uphill battle for the Philadelphia Union.
As Tom started talking to his sources, it became clear that Kevin Sullivan was on the radar of basically every major team. This became a huge threat for the Philadelphia Union, because even though he was in their academy, he was not technically under contract at the age of 14. This meant that if he could be convinced to move, Kevin Sullivan could leave for just a couple $100,000 in compensation. And because he had a German passport, he could move to Europe anywhere in Europe at 16 years old instead of the normal 18. And the problem kept getting bigger for the Philadelphia Union because Kevin Sullivan continued to wow scouts.
Kevin Sullivan then went with the, again, and I talking to U.S. Youth National Team sources, like, I remember joking with somebody, like, was it difficult to scout him and want to bring him into the, like, did you pat yourself on the back when you identified Kevin Sullivan and called him into the U.S. Youth National Team camps? And they were like, look, dude, he's a diamond, right? Like, that was like the literal word that they said. And he's always playing up, even with U.S. Youth National Teams, always the best player on the field, even though he's playing up an age or two. So he's with the United States U15s last year. They were playing England U15s in Europe. Kevin scored both goals in a 2-2 draw. They ended up winning in penalties. The Manchester City head of academy was there. And from that point on, they're like, we need to sign this kid.
And Manchester City was not the only team that was preparing an offer for Kevin Sullivan, but City's offer was so significant, it actually priced out all of the other big clubs for somebody who's 14 years old.
Per one source told me when I was like trying to clarify details, did Bayern Munich and Real Madrid make an offer? Because you try to sift through, everybody can say interest, right? A source came back to me and says, just trust me when I say they were real, but like, no, they didn't make an offer because they knew that they weren't going to touch Manchester City's finances. So Manchester City elbowed out Real Madrid and Bayern Munich in terms of finances for this kid, right? Like, nobody does that. Like, these are the teams that swim at the top, like the top of the food chain in terms of money. And even Real Madrid and Bayern were like, that's it. Yeah, too much for me. It's crazy.
Well, that's insane. There is a cool way for you to support clubs that aren't trying to bully Real Madrid and Bayern Munich financially. And you can do it while getting super sick jerseys like this one. There are tons of cool jerseys from small clubs around the world like that on the website Sangalo, the official jersey sponsor of this channel. While this Zoman kit is from Ivory Coast and comes in 2 different colors, there are a lot of options. How about this absolutely sick Ho Chi Minh City kit? Or maybe you want to take it to Belize with Verdes FC. Sangalo partners with these small clubs all around the world to increase their exposure and financial capability by making their jerseys available to people that love cool jerseys like me and you. So check out Sangalo in the description. Now back to how Kevin actually ended up going to Manchester City. After some tense negotiations, the Philadelphia Union and Manchester City agreed on a complex deal that would allow Kevin Sullivan to move to Manchester City at 18.
He pre-agreed a deal with Manchester City for when he turns 18. And in reporting this out, the Philadelphia Union offered him what would be the most lucrative homegrown contract in MLS history. And I was told Manchester City's offer was 20 times that. So in terms of financial muscle, it's not close. And the original idea was that because of his EU passport, he could go to one of Manchester City's sister clubs in Europe when he's 16. But then that's still a 2-year gap of development and Philadelphia in negotiating was like, you want us to do everything we can for this kid for 2 years free of charge for you, Manchester City, one of the most rich clubs in the world? Like, give me a break here. And furthermore, the team that they wanted to send him to, Lommel, the Belgian second division. Philly was like, this boy's development is better here than the Belgian second division, right? And if for some reason, I'd be shocked by this, but hey, who knows? Don't put any ceilings on the kid. If at 16 or 17, he's proven to Philly and City that he's past MLS already, then they will let him go to either Girona or Palermo. I'm very glad that both parties were able to agree the best developmental path for this kid. And like, that was like Philly's thing too. Obviously they needed to dig their heels in and fight monetarily, but at the end of the day, they wanted what's best for the kid. Like, it's not like even if they like stuck to their guns and he's just going to leave for training compensation, they obviously wouldn't be able to promote him into the first team under that circumstance, but it's not like they were going to kick him out of the academy, right? Like, they still care about this kid making it, that they're still proud. So I think it's the best for everybody involved that he gets his development. Philly gets to have a few years with the kid, and then City gets him when he's 18. Again, what I think is the best developmental path for him. They're trying to be careful not to overhype him, not only because he's 14, but also because he's American. And like, a direct line that kind of came back to us was there have been other American kids who have been heralded as this big time talent that like never really made it. And I think that's like extremely unfair to Kevin Sullivan. And like, look, not that this is costing him anything, right? Like, it didn't stop him from going to City. It didn't stop him from this big contract coming in and all of us talking about him and doing this video with the great Zealand, that he's getting all of this. So it's not holding him back, but like, I don't care what his nationality is. In terms of, I get it with the quality of development, the coaching, the infrastructure, everything else. The United States Academy stuff is really, really top notch. I think it's unfair to either hype him because he's American or doubt him because he's American. This is always something that, and again, this doesn't only happen to American kids. Like, I'm certain that other places in the world be like, oh, whatever, this one kid from Brazil didn't make it, so let's not, this could be the next blank. Like, the way that people will say negatively, oh, like, what if he's Freddie Adu? I just don't think that that's fair at all. And, like, particularly Freddie Adu, these are where the comps are going to come from people who don't know anything about American soccer. This was a completely different landscape in 2004 when Freddie Adu was coming through. It was a completely different league. MLS is miles better than it was then. Again, the academy system is miles better than it was then. Philadelphia Union are at the cutting edge of the academy stuff. They produced Brendan Aronson, Paxton Harrison, Mark McKenzie, Austin Trusty. All these players who have gone on to Europe, gone into the national team. The sporting director of the Philadelphia Union is a man named Ernst Tanner. Ernst Tanner made his mark as the guy who established Red Bull Salzburg's academy. Erling Haaland, Dominic Soboslai, a billion other names that I can go down. This is the guy who set up that academy, and particularly the international scouting with it. He's the one who revolutionized the Philadelphia Union Academy. So it's ridiculously unfair to compare Freddie Adu and that era of MLS to Kevin Sullivan right now.
With City clearly sold on his potential and the Philadelphia Union accelerating his path, the question remains when Kevin Sullivan will actually make his debut in first-team football. And sources from both Manchester City and the Philadelphia Union agree that by the time he's 16, he should be a complete regular with the first-team side. And that's a first-team side that already includes his older brother, Quinn Sullivan, who's a very good prospect in his own right. And that's a good time to go on a brief aside, because Kevin Sullivan is from a very good soccer family. Not only are Kevin's 3 older brothers all high-level players, his grandfather Larry Sullivan was a legendary head coach of Villanova men's soccer, and his dad played for Larry Sullivan and was then an assistant coach at Villanova men's soccer. Oh, also his uncle Chris Albright has 22 caps for the US national team. Perhaps all that in-house experience and guidance explains why Kevin Sullivan is so good playing against older opponents.
If he were to go to Lommel at 16, they thought that he'd be like a starter already. Wouldn't be useful for him because he wouldn't have to really fight for his place. This is nuts. And I'm like trying to be careful not to be hyperbolic, not to go over the top, but this is just like genuinely what I hear from people that I talk to, these experts who are smarter than me and better than me at all this stuff. We'll see how he adapts to the second team. He made his second team debut. He came off the bench. He played the game-winning assist. Things are going well there. They played a USL championship team in preseason. Tampa Bay Rowdies, a very good USL championship team. And they have grown men, right? Like 28, 34, like they have men. That ain't a U21 team, right? I was talking to somebody at Philly who was there, and the direct quote that I'm going to read from my article, he was running through adult men 3 times his size. That's real. He's not fake tough. He's fearless. This is a Philly kid, man. He's gonna, when he gets in the first team, I promise you, his older brother will be front of the line, Quinn Sullivan, of kicking the shit out of him in training. He's gonna be fine. He's got a bit of like he's got an edge on him, which is good. For the most part, it doesn't go into the bad side, but it comes with like, yeah, but his teammates love him. He's a good kid. It's not like, oh my god, this kid's rotten. It's just, yeah, he's a confident kid, and he needs that confidence. He needs that edge to make it to the highest level.
But with such impressive performances against seasoned professionals and with people like me making videos like this, it's very easy to forget just how young Kevin Sullivan is, though. Those 12-year-old highlights that Tom was trying to ignore earlier, those were just 2 years ago. Kevin Sullivan joined the Philadelphia Union Academy in 2020 at the age of 10. And even right now, Kevin is just starting high school in the American school system.
I got an anecdote one time after he got a red card that his dad said, "You're grounded." And I was like, oh yeah, this is a child. Seeing him up close, he's like, don't quote me on this. He's like 4'7" or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like this, the Union have one of their top talents in that team is a center back who's 6'5", and like watching him dap up the 6'5" kid was just like, it was beautiful. And I was like, oh my god, like this is a 14-year-old child. Like you forget it when he's running around because his mannerisms, everything he does, he looks like a pro, man. Like it's uncanny, and it's not for show. It's all like comes natural to him versus like his mentality. Like it's just weird. It's like, oh yeah, after the game, like this is a child. Like there was on Backfield.com, there was a good feature about that kid's family, and it was just like, yeah, Kevin's like any other 14-year-old kid who's having pizza right now for dinner, except for the fact that he's gonna wake up at 4 a.m. tomorrow, and his dad is joking like I'm letting him sleep in.
It is so easy to forget how young these players are when you were involved in this world trying to find the next Wonderkid, like Tom is, like I am, and like maybe you are too. But it's always worth remembering that for Kevin Sullivan, this is a lot. Very early. He's gotten 77,000 Instagram followers in the last 30 days. That's a ton of eyeballs for a 14-year-old and a lot of pressure to match. But when you watch highlights like this, it's easy to see how people overlook that stuff so readily. As interesting as I find this story, and as much as I wanted to make this video, I do really just wish Cavan all the best. He's already accomplished more on the field than the vast majority of us ever will in our lives. His dream of being a professional player is already here, and obviously he hopes for a lot more, but that's already a massive achievement. And this is going to be a long journey. Cavan Sullivan is not going to even be Erling Haaland's age until 2033. But he's already got the largest homegrown deal in history lined up, and a move lined up to Manchester City when he's 18 years old. That's an incredible accomplishment. But with as much as he's already accomplished, it's hard not to be excited about the future, wherever that might lead. If you want to read Tom's article or any of the other sources we used for this video, then check out the links in the description. Huge thank you to Tom for hopping on for this one. If you enjoyed it, please do subscribe. I look forward to hearing about what you have to say about Cavan Sullivan and this whole crazy circus in the comments. And if you want to keep watching videos, that's a video of us going to the Faroe Islands to inspect a team that made it to the European group stages in club competition from a country of 50,000 people.